Hi everybody. I would like to thank you for attending this webinar. We're going to be exploring Microsoft Word, talking about hyperlinking, bookmarking, and cross-referencing, and a few other things. I'm Dr. Neufer, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be working exclusively in Microsoft Word today. I'm going to open up a blank document, and we're going to work from there. So I'll bump this up a little bit. We're going to be talking about the styles that are available and the different design components as well. So to begin this document, I'm starting from scratch here, but we're going to enter some text just so that we have something to work with, which is where the first tip is going to come in. I'm going to type in equal rand and a set of parentheses, and I'm going to put two numbers in here. Let me bump this up a bit. The first number is how many paragraphs do I want. So I'd say I'm going to have about 12 paragraphs, and each paragraph is going to have about 6 sentences. So when I hit enter, then my Word document is automatically going to populate with text. This is 12 paragraphs, it's 6 sentences. It's just random words. I mean, it's not so random. This is just, these are sentences that are generated by Microsoft. There are actually some tips and fun things that you can access. There are a few other options as well. I can put in some more text if I want lorem ipsum. Then I can type in lorem, and perhaps I want 2 paragraphs, and lorem ipsum sentences tend to be a little shorter. They look like Latin, so I'm going to put about 8 sentences per paragraph, and that'll give me a couple paragraphs to work with. If you'd like to have just the quick brown fox as random text, then you can put rand R-A-N-D dot old, and then you can put how many quick brown foxes. Maybe I want 1 paragraph with let's say 6 sentences of the quick brown fox, and so that'll give me that just gives me some words to work with. And so for the purpose of this document, this is what we'll be working with. And so the first thing I want to do when formatting my document, I'm going to give it a title. And I'm not a very original person, I suppose. So I'm going to put my title. As long as you have the cursor somewhere in this paragraph, you can either select the entire paragraph by changing the cursor to this, and then you can select it, or you can manually highlight it. You can put in only part of it. And then I'm going to put title. So I want to have my cursor somewhere there. I'd have to highlight all of it to have it be title, apparently, but as long as the cursor's somewhere, then I'll put my title. Now I also want various headings, and so I'm going to put heading 1, and we're just going to walk through. So a couple paragraphs down, I'm going to put heading 2, and I'm going to put a heading 3, and I think 3 will be bigger, so I'll keep adding some headings for maybe 5 down here, and I'll do one more, a heading 6. So now I have all these headings in my document, and what I want to do is I want to format these using the style up here. And so I can put my cursor anywhere in this heading paragraph, and I'll put heading 1. Now these are all going to be heading 1, even though they're called heading 2 and 3, because they're just all going to be different sections, I suppose. Now I can do this. I can select multiple things. You notice when I move my cursor over to the left, then the cursor changes a little bit, and that allows me to highlight entire lines at a time. So I can highlight a line, and then holding Control on my keyboard, I can highlight multiple lines. And so this is another trick. You can highlight various lines all at once, and I'm going to apply heading to all of those. So now 1 through 6 should have my headings. And so this is important because we're going to create a table of contents using these headings. But before we get there quite yet, if there's ever something that you want to change, if you don't like the look and feel of this and you want to create your own template, you can right click on any one of these style options up here. So for example, heading 1, and you can modify the heading, and you have all kinds of options. You can rename it to something else, heading 1, or main heading. You can change the formatting. and you have a lot of options here. And for example, paragraph, suppose I wanted to add a little bit of space between the heading and the main text there. You can modify, and you can go to Format, Paragraph, and right now there's 12 points before of spacing before this heading text, and there's a little bit of space after the main title text as well. And suppose I want to, maybe I could reduce that to 6, and I want to bump up the space after to something like 12. And then I can click OK and update, and it updates that for all of the headings. Now I could just update that for this individual heading as well. If that's what I wanted, I can go to line spacing and I can manually adjust that. And it's only going to make that adjustment for this bit that I highlighted. It's not going to adjust it for everything. So if you wanted to make adjustments that affect the entire document, then you would make those changes up here. And I can do the same for my title. For example, I can modify the title. You can create your own custom galleries. For example, you can add it. There are a lot of options here that I'm not showing. But for example, fonts, if I didn't like that font, maybe I wanted it to be a tad bigger, or whichever you want. Sometimes titles are all caps, for example, or even small caps. So there's a big cap for the first letter of the word, and then the other letters are capitalized, but they're a little bit smaller. You can make whichever changes you want. And you can see all of the settings, those main settings right here outlined for you. So I'm looking at Calibri Light, 28 point, a little bit of kerning, don't add spaces between, all of the information is right there. You can also create your own style. So one other thing I wanted to show you is I opened this up as a new document. You saw as a new document, by default it had this style, but I'm not, I don't need to have only this style. In fact, I'm going to hit undo a couple times so that I can have that. So there are various formatting styles right here. With the drop down, I can see those. They're different fonts, different colors, different alignments. For example, this one's center aligned. So as you hover over, you can see the various settings, and then you can take one of these and create a different setting and create your own custom style as well, or theme. So here's some themes, some various variations on the theme. Once I've chosen that, I can also change the colors. I can make this a grayscale, or maybe I'm old school, but I kind of like the old Office 2007 color scheme. I think that was a very good color scheme. But you can customize your own colors here. The various accents, the various text, backgrounds, and then you would just change the name to whichever name you would like. You can even adjust the color of text that the hyperlinks appear, both before they're clicked and after they're clicked. So you have a lot of options there. And you can also change the fonts if you'd like something Roboto, a little sans serif that's a little squarish. That might be something interesting. So you're not stuck with only the style that they give you. You can adjust any of these things. But the reason why it's important to have these headings the way that I program them is for things like making a table of contents. So that's what we're going to do on this page right here. I'm going to mute myself for one so I don't get system noises. We're going to make a table of contents right here, and I'm going to go to the references ribbon right here, and I'll go table of contents, and there are a few different options. They're basically kind of the same, and I can customize it however I want, but I'm just going to choose this automatic table right here. So when I choose automatic table, it automatically takes every heading that I've added and it puts that in the list. Excuse me. And it gives you the page number, and it makes it very nice and clean. And you can update it. For example, I gave myself a little bit of room on heading 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put subheadings. I'm going to call this one heading 3.1. That'll be my subheading. And right here, this will be heading 3.2, my subheading. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these things. I'm holding Control on my keyboard and selecting multiple lines so I can do it all at once. Go back to my home screen, and I'm going to put heading 2. So these are subheadings within heading 3. Now I'm going to go up to the table of contents and select Update. If you click anywhere within the table, then you'll get this option, Update Table. Click on that, click Update Entire Table, and click OK. And then you can see what changed is I now have these two subheadings, which are heading 2 nested underneath heading 3 in the table of contents, and I have the page numbers as well. I can go even deeper than that. Suppose here's the subheading, and I can put one more heading. So I'm going to put heading 3.1, subheading 1, and a subheading below that is another 1, and that'll be 3. So I mean, it's getting a little complicated. I don't suggest often that you put subheadings below subheadings, but for the sake of updating the table, we'll see how that shows. There, so now I have sections. I have my title, I have the contents, I have the sections, and I have subsections, and I have my page numbers. And I can go to, I can change these. For example, I can right click and I can update the field. I can edit the field. There are a lot of things that you can do. But the point is that if you use these headings and subheadings correctly throughout, then you don't have to build your table of contents. All you have to do is put a table of contents and refresh every time that you put new material out there. So as you're creating long documents, and these can be saved as PDFs, in fact, and these are all hyperlinked, and they're active hyperlinks. So the hyperlink in the PDF will take you to the various headings, just as right now they're hyperlinked. As I hover over, you can see the hyperlink says Control on the keyboard, hold Control and click to follow the link. So as I hold Control, you'll see the cursor changes to a hand, which indicates that that's hyperlinked. I click on that and it takes me down to heading 5. And so that's kind of the introduction to hyperlinking, that we're talking about hyperlinking, bookmarking, cross-referencing. So the table of contents automatically hyperlinks to the headings, the various headings that you have here. But you can hyperlink other things as well. For example, if this was some text that was important and I needed to hyperlink, I'm going to go to the design ribbon. There's 3 different ways I can create a hyperlink. One is go to insert, not design, I said design, I meant insert ribbon. Within the links here, I can click on this hyperlink button here, or I can right click and I can choose hyperlink from that option. Or with that selected, I can, on my PC, I can press Control and K, and that takes me to the insert hyperlink. So 3 different ways that you can access this insert hyperlink. Now for a hyperlink, you can hyperlink to a web page. So you would just type in whatever it is. I guess I have pull everywhere. So it can take you to a web page. It can take you to a place in this document. So right now, all of those headings, I can hyperlink to any one of those headings. And you can see there's a bookmarks tab here, and we don't have bookmarks yet, but let's create a bookmark. So suppose I'm going to hop over to the top of the page. Suppose I have some text up here that is hyperlinking because it's referencing something later on in the document. Let's put something later on. I'm going to add an image. So just for the purpose of this, I'm going to search for online images, something Creative Commons, and I'm going to search for an image of a professor, for example. So various images. Let's choose this guy. He's interesting. He's wearing a bow tie. So why not? An error occurred. That's why not. Okay, little hiccup, but I have my professor image right here. So suppose this is something that I want to reference at a different point in the document. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the image right here, and I'm going to insert a bookmark as a link. This is the link group, so you have hyperlink, bookmark, and cross-reference, and we're going to talk about each of those. I'm going to insert a bookmark, and I'm going to name the bookmark something. I'm just going to say professor. Now it has to be one word. If I were to put Professor Pat, then you notice I can't add it, so I have to limit it to just one word, and then I can add that. Now, if I wanted to, I could, let me delete that. If I needed multiple words, I can just have it as one word and then use a capitalized, combine the 2 words, but then capitalize the other word. So Professor Pat lecture, for example, it would let me put that if I spell it right. I don't have to spell it right. It'll know. So Professor Pat lecture, or Professor Pat, add that. Now I have this bookmarked. So if I hop up here and I can say refer to Professor Pat, and I want that hyperlink to the image. So I'm going to hyperlink it. I'll click on this hyperlink. Now instead of hyperlinking to a web page, I'm actually going to hyperlink it to a place in this document. And I can see various headings, for example, and then I can see my bookmarks. Bookmark Professor Pat is right there. So I'm going to click OK. And now you can see that hyperlinked, and as I follow the hyperlink, it'll take me right to the Professor Pat page. And I can also hyperlink other things, like I can hyperlink this heading, heading 4. I'll do the same thing. I'll put heading 4 as the bookmark, add that, and I'll hop up here, and so I can say refer to heading 4 or Professor Pat. Now, I don't know if that was the best example, because I can hyperlink heading 4, for example, or I can hyperlink the bookmark that I created for heading 4. So I'll do that, and as I click on this and follow the hyperlink, then you can see the cursor lands on heading 4. And so you can put bookmarks anywhere within the document. Nobody's actually going to know where the bookmarks are, but it makes it completely interactive. Now another thing I can do is, suppose I'm going to highlight this picture, and I'm going to click on the References tab, and I'm going to add a caption. So it's a figure 1, and I can put Professor Pat, and I'm going to put the caption above the item, and you can format that however you want, but I'm going to click OK, and now I have figure 1 Professor Pat, and I'll go ahead and put another image, maybe up here in heading 2. I'm going to click insert, just search for an online, I'll search for college, for example, and I'll just select whichever one. This is one from Wikipedia. I'll go ahead and insert that. It'll think it's a little bit big, so I'm going to crop that down to about 6.5 inches wide. I'll make that maybe 3 inches wide. Something a little more manageable. Now I'm going to hop over to References, insert my caption again, and as figure 1, I'll put college, and click OK. And since now we have 2 figures on the page, it knows this one's figure 1 because it's first. And as I scroll down here, you can see that that is now figure 2, Professor Pat. Now suppose, and let me do one more thing before I move on. Sorry for all the scrolling. I was just looking for a place. I'm going to insert a table, and it'll just be a simple table, and I'll put I don't know, pros and cons. What are the pros? It's cheap, and it looks very professional. The cons are that it's time consuming. So that could represent anything. It could represent research or art or whatever. So I'll format it a little bit. I'm not going to worry about the column, whatever. And then one trick is by default it spreads out the width of a table to span the width of the column here. If I don't need all that white space, I can put my cursor so that where I can see the 2 lines and arrows pointing to the left and to the right, just double click on that and it'll pull it right close. And I can double click on this as well, and it'll pull it right close so that you can have a more manageable. And you can add columns or rows by hovering in these areas. So what I'm going to do is I'll highlight this table. I'm going to hop back over to References again, and I'm going to insert another caption. This time, instead of a figure, I'm going to put a table. So this is table 1, and it's pros and cons, or whatever your table is called. So I'll add that. Now these are 3 things: this picture of the professor, the table, and then this picture of a campus, a college campus that I want to put over here. So I'm going to refer to these things. Now since I've captioned them using the references thing, what I'm going to do is, instead of highlighting, typing out a word, highlighting it, and going to insert a hyperlink, I'm instead going to go to this reference tab And in the captions group right here, instead of insert caption, I'm going to go to cross-reference. And it's going to have a list of all the things that I've referenced. So I have headings, for example. All my headings are right there. And I have my figures. And so here's figure 1, college. I'll put that in there. And refer to figure 1, comma. Let's put table, my table, pros and cons, comma. And then my last reference will be that figure, Professor Pat, sorry. Oh, I didn't press OK. Professor Pat, insert. And then maybe I'll put one more. I'll cross-reference. Not speaking well. Heading 3.1. Insert there. Now the advantage to what I just did, this isn't just inserting words into your document, but these are all hyperlinks right to the figures, to the tables, to the headings. So if I click on this, I hold Control on my keyboard and click, it'll take me right to that college page. If I click on heading 3.1, it'll take my cursor right to heading 3.1. And I can add another thing after each heading or such. I can add a thing that like to jump up to the top of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and type in return to top or go back to the top. I'll hyperlink this. I'm going to go to the insert ribbon, and I'm going to click hyperlink, and I'll click top of documents, top of the document like that. Return to the top, and this is something that I can copy, and I could put it after each section. For example, I can return to the top, return to the top, and maybe after section 1, heading 1. So return to the top. So those are all hyperlinked. So for example, if I were to click on Professor Pat, figure 2, Professor Pat, and then from here I can return back to the top once again, and I go back to the very top of the document. Now suppose I added, so I have a figure 1 college, and then I have figure 2 Professor Pat. Let's put in one more figure, maybe after 3.2. Let's go ahead and insert. I'll insert one more picture, and this could be maybe a student. Let's see what kind of images they have for students. There's a student. There's a guy. I'll put him in there, and I'm going to create a bookmark, so I'll go ahead and insert bookmark. And the bookmark's name is student if I wanted to. Or I can put a caption, insert caption, and this would be not a table but a figure. And then I can press OK, and it automatically changes that. So figure 2 is the student. Professor Pat is now figure 3. So let's hop back up over to the top of the page when we had, now we said refer to figure 1. Figure 2 is still Professor Pat, even though I changed that and it's figure 3. So here's the trick with that. And this is something you can do at the very end. If you're using the cross-references, then you don't need to update them all the time, because by default, this is still going to Professor Pat. It's not going to figure 2 necessarily. It's going to this figure in particular. So we just need to update that. So I'm going to hop back to the top. I'm going to press Control A on my keyboard, which highlights the entire document. Now I'm going to press F9. So I'll even type that here. So I'm going to press Control plus A, and then I'm going to go ahead and press F9 on the keyboard. And that gives me an option to update the table of contents, but everything's selected. So I'm going to click Update the entire table. And I'm going to look to see if Professor Pat changes from figure 2 to figure 3. So I'll click OK, and there you can see the change. And so any place in the document where I had a cross-reference to a caption or a figure or table or header, and if it was obsolete, then I wouldn't have to really spend much time. I just press Control A, F9, update the table, and everything would update. And so that makes our job easier. And so you don't really have to think about these things so much because they get taken care of. So we talked about a lot of things in this session here. We talked about random text and how you can fill that in, equal rand, and you can say I want one paragraph with 12 sentences, for example, and it'll give you that. You can also do that with lorem ipsum. Just type in lorem, or the quick brown fox would be rand.old in parentheses, however much you want. We talked about styles and the various styles and why it's important to use these styles, especially as it helps to hyperlink, cross-reference, and create a table of contents for you that you don't need to update. Well, I mean, you need to update it, but you don't have to change the settings so much. We also talked about some of the design elements. You have various different designs that you can choose from, and you can change them on the fly. You can change colors, fonts, various effects. You can change the theme from one to another, and you can create your own custom. All of this can be custom set. One thing I didn't talk about is page color. You can change the page color if you really want to. I don't think that there are very many times when that would be necessary, but if you really want to, you can choose gradient options, for example, if that's something important. I can't really see it here, but as I zoom out, you can maybe see that there's a little gradient. It's very subtle, though. We also talked about how to create a table of contents, how to update the table of contents. This is already updated, but I would click on the table of contents, click update. I guess it wasn't updated because it didn't have heading 6. Heading 6 is now on page 5, and so I don't have to worry about typing out the heading, pressing dot until I get over there. Here, it automatically aligns it for you. It automatically updates it easily, page numbers, as well as if you add another heading, move anything around, then the table of contents can be updated in just a short click. We talked about hyperlinking, various forms of hyperlinking. You can hyperlink text, and you can hyperlink it to a website, even an email address. You can have that hyperlink to email me, for example, Sean at my email address.com, and you can put a subject in there as well. You can hyperlink to places within the document, and those places would be headings that you've used using the styles, any bookmarks that you've created, or to the top of the page. We talked about how to create bookmarks. So you place your cursor anywhere you want, or highlight, or rather select an image, a table. I can create a bookmark for this table, for example. Insert bookmark, and it's as easy as that, and add it. And then you can use that to hyperlink to places. You can hyperlink to your bookmarks, and it'll take the cursor right to there. And you can save this even as a PDF. So to save this as a PDF, I'm going to click on the file option over here. I'm going to save as, in this case, I'm going to save it to my PC. I have a folder here. By default, it says save as Word document. That's just standard, pretty much what you'll do most of the time, but you can choose PDF as well. This is a demo document for the webinar. I'll go ahead and save it. I'll open the file after publishing so that we can take a look at that. And it's not wanting to open. I've been having some problems just today not being able to open. I haven't figured out what it is, so you get to browse with me. We're going to go the webinar. Yeah, for some reason Adobe Reader's not working, so I'm going to open it in Adobe Acrobat instead. So my apologies, a little workaround. So here's my document in PDF form. You can see the gradient background. It doesn't actually look that great, so I don't suggest using backgrounds all that often, but these are all hyperlinked right here, the table of contents, so I can click on that, return to the top of the page. I'll click on 3.1. Now let me hop up to the top where I have all of those cross references. So here where it says refer to all of these things, I have the table, for example, or Professor Pat, and I can hyperlink right to those elements. So that's utilizing cross-references, hyperlinking, bookmarks, and table of contents. And so I wanted to keep this to about 30 minutes, and so we're at the 30-minute mark. And so I'd like to thank you for attending, and if you have any questions or comments, then please let us know.